It was February 2015, just a few weeks after I had surgery on my foot and I was on the road to recovery. Everything was going normal until one morning I woke up to an excruciating pain. I yelled for my mom across the house and she rushed to my room. She asked if it was my foot that was bothering me. But the funniest part of all was it really wasn't my foot that was bothering me. It was my chest. I explained to her that it felt like someone was sitting on my chest, that it hurt to breathe and hurt to move. I told her something was wrong. After saying something was wrong, we immediately decided to go to the emergency room. After going to the emergency room, the nurses and the doctor asked me all sorts of questions on my foot and my pain. The doctor decided it was time to go do some tests. After doing many tests and waiting patiently, the results came back. It turns out I had a blood clot, also known as a pulmonary embolism, in both of my lungs. Today I'm going to inform you about a condition known as a pulmonary embolism, or as you might hear me call it for short, a PE. Some of you have probably heard or know about a pulmonary embolism, however, many of you have not had to experience or go through it. I also assume that there are some of you who have never heard of a pulmonary embolism at all, and my goal today is to help inform you on this condition. Pulmonary embolisms usually don't happen at such a young age, and overall can be life-threatening, and I am very glad to be one of many to survive it. I have been learning about a pulmonary embolism ever since the day it happened. I have read articles, done research, and looked at many websites to better gain information on it as well and make me more knowledgeable so that if it happens to me again or to someone else, I am more prepared. Today we will be discussing what a pulmonary embolism is, what the risk factors are, along with the symptoms and treatment options. A PE is when a blood clot gets lodged into the lungs. Now, this is usually when a DVT, a deep vein thrombosis, or a blood clot that starts in your leg or somewhere else in the body, dislodges itself and travels up into the lungs where it gets stuck. Now, because a pulmonary embolism can block the flow of blood, this can be life-threatening and cause damage to the organ itself, and cause it really not to work anymore, or cause damage to even other organs in your body. Now, the veins that are in your lungs are very small, so a blood clot is very easily able to get lodged inside of one. This is all according to XeraltoUs.com, last access January 15th, 2018. Every year, as many as 900,000 people experience a blood clot of some sort, whether it be a pulmonary embolism or a deep vein thrombosis. And about 100,000 of them die, according to XeraltoUs.com, last access October 7th, 2018. Pulmonary embolisms are a serious matter, and once you've had one, you're at risk of having another one. So, now that you've learned a little bit about what a pulmonary embolism is, we will discuss its risk factors along with its symptoms. Now, a blood clot can occur at any point in time, but there are risk factors that make them more likely to occur. Some of these risk factors include immobility or alterations in your normal blood flow. This often happens if you've been hospitalized for a long period of time, or went on a long flight, or if you've been in a car ride for quite a while. If you've had an increased clotting potential, doctors often call this hypocoagulability, and this could be caused by medications like birth control. Maybe you're a smoker or you've had cancer. And if you've had a recent surgery, and pregnancy can even be one of the factors to it. One of the last ones is damage to a blood vessel wall. This is usually happen when there's trauma to your leg, causing the blood clot to start in your lung and then move into your lungs. So this is all according to What's a Pulmonary Embolism, last accessed October 7th, 2018. Now, a blood clot that starts in your leg is called the DVT, and then this is when it moves to your lungs. Now, oftentimes, people don't realize the symptoms for a DVT, and they include swelling of your leg or arm, leg pain or tenderness when you're standing or walking, a swollen leg or arm that is warmer than normal, and red and discolored skin that affects the leg, and if your vein in your arm or leg is larger than normal. And what happens is the symptoms I've listed for the DVT are important because if you catch them early enough, then you can prevent them from having a pulmonary embolism. However, in some cases, you may not have any of these symptoms before having a pulmonary embolism. I didn't, so just be cautious for that. Now, when it comes to a pulmonary embolism, the symptoms that you need to watch for are shortness of breath, chest pain, cough, and in some cases, the cough may have blood in it, so that is a good warning sign for you. Pain in your back, much more sweating than usual, a lightheaded feelingness or passing out, and the last one is blue lips or nails. Now, all this information and symptoms comes from WebMD's What is a Pulmonary Embolism, last accessed October 7, 2018. The symptoms for a pulmonary embolism are some of the worst I've ever felt, but Some people actually don't experience them. You have to be careful because according to Medline Plus, about half of the people that have pulmonary embolism symptoms don't have one at all. And if not treated properly or promptly, a PE can lead to sudden death. Or so if you or someone you know has any risk factors or is feeling of these symptoms, please get help immediately. This image here shows the main vein in your leg, and this shows the vein with normal blood flow, which all the blood flow seems to be going just fine. And over here, you will notice that there are red areas that are dark and clumped together, and those are blood clots. Here is when the blood clots detach themselves, and that is when they work their way up to the lungs. So, now that we've looked at some of the risk factors and symptoms of a pulmonary embolism, let's look into how they can be treated. So, treatments for a pulmonary embolism really depend on the size and location of the blood clot. So, if the problem is minor and caught early, they can provide you drugs. But if it's caught too late, then surgery may be the next option. Some drugs that the doctors might prescribe you are anticoagulants, which are blood thinners, and these help prevent future blood clots from happening, and as well as clot dissolvers called thrombolytics. And these are an injection made to dissolve the blood clot and break it apart. Now, your doctor may recommend surgery, and some of those surgeries are inferior vena cava. This is a filter that goes in your calf that if a blood clot occurs, it will filter through and break it apart. Another one is clot removal. This is like a catheter. It's a small tube that goes through, reaches in, grabs the blood clot, and then pulls it out. One of the last ones is open surgery, where they cut the vein open, look inside, and pull it out that way. That is one of the last resources they will ever do. We've been discussing the condition known as a pulmonary embolism. We first talked about what a pulmonary embolism is, what the side effects and risk factors are, and symptoms that go along with a pulmonary embolism. And finally, we went over the treatment options, both surgical and drug-related. When I discovered I had a pulmonary embolism, I had many questions going through my head. I wondered, what was it? What caused it? What can they do for it? And much more. I had so many questions, but my questions were answered at the hospital. They told me that my blood clot was because I was on birth control and immobile for such a long period of time. Here I am at 22 years old, just a few years later, and I am perfectly healthy and normal. I still go in for blood work to check and make sure everything is going right, but overall, I'm no different than anyone else. Now, I want you to remember one thing. A blood clot is very dangerous. So, in the end, a pulmonary embolism can be life-threatening. But remember, a pulmonary emboli can try and stop you, but you can stop the pulmonary emboli. Thank you.